Hi, everyone, and welcome to the third and second to last monologue in the Imperialism series. And this one is about possession and the decline in public spaces, not just physical public spaces, but commercial public spaces and social public spaces at the hands of imperialism. And this was inspired by, even though I know a lot of people are listening from outside Kenya, but I know you'll be able to resonate with this. A few days ago, there was an article in one of our local newspapers praising this billionaire business magnate. He's a Kenyan. It's called Peter Munga, and praising him for joining in a consortium to develop an expressway or an expressway between Nairobi and Mombasa. That's the Kenyan coast. Um, Now, personally, I've never liked I've never liked the idea of toll roads, especially when they're privatized. I don't use the Nairobi Expressway, but the Nairobi Expressway, um, the despite its being a sort of white elephant corruption type project, the only saving grace is that there's an alternative. There are alternative routes you can use, albeit they take longer. But it's one of the sacrifices I make. I start out earlier. But anyway, Munga is getting in on this Mombasa highway to Mombasa. Now, to put into context, those who don't know, the Nairobi Mombasa highway, there is no alternative route. It's an essential route from Nairobi to Mombasa, but not just Nairobi, Uganda to the coast. Rwanda to the coast, road transport to the East African coast, you have a choice. The only choice is you take the Nairobi Mombasa highway, or you take the highway, whichever highway through Tanzania. And that's my problem with it. Private ownership of a public space of which there is no alternative. There's no public alternative. Now, leave alone the commercial interests. I'm just picturing someone who lives in Mombasa, or he works in Mombasa and lives up country, or lives in Voi along the road, or Mtito Andei, or comes from Kibwezi or something. The road to your home will be owned by will be in private hands. Now, a few years ago, there was a Hollywood movie. I think it was called Death Race or something. It was meant to be a dystopian vision of a privately owned prison where there was a commercially run fight, not fight, but car races and killings and all that, where prisoners would fight to gain their freedom. And it was a privately owned prison, and the owner of the prison would obviously get profit from the TV ratings for these violent races and shooting and all that. So it was a very profitable operation. But that was Hollywood, and it looked dystopian. Back then, I never imagined a prison could be privately owned. Well, 2025, I know there are privately owned prisons in various places around the world. Um, and this is the diminishing of public space. There's been so much propaganda over the years that says private is better because they present themselves as more efficient, more professional, more this, more that. Just recently, the Kenya government was entering into a deal with one Indian billionaire businessman called Gautam Adani, and this he was meant to take over the running of our main international airport, Jomo Kenyatta International Airport in Nairobi. And people were understandably baffled or up in arms about how does our national airport, that's even a regional hub, get into the hands of into private hands, more so to foreign private hands. And you could see how this had been engineered. Previous to that, there'd been all these inefficiencies, leaking roofs, power failures that were inexplicable at the airport. I mean, how does an airport have a power failure and no backup generator? For God's sake, we have backup generators even in homes. But and I later on saw that, oh, this was all geared towards um, garnering support for this takeover into private hands, which would somehow bring efficiency that wasn't there in public hands. No, we can have efficiency in public hands. We just have to have the right people. But to think of private private ownership of a hub that I need to use, I have to use when I travel out of the country, as I do for work and various other purposes. I have to use Jomo Kenyatta International Airport to get back to my home, my country of origin. And for that purpose, I have to pass through a facility and pay management or service fees into private hands of a foreigner who is not even Kenyan. The principle of this is absolutely absurd. But this is the imperialism that's happening now. As I said before, imperialism is no longer about nations, empires conquering other nations. The new imperialists are oligarchs. They are the billionaires. They are capitalists, and increasingly, it is governments that are working for billionaires. It is not billionaires working for governments. It's governments working for billionaires. So governments are there as brokers, have become brokers. The government, the civil servant or minister or president, his job is to sign. He's a clerk who signs the papers that gives assets to billionaires. I've talked often about our conservation sector. I'm a conservation biologist, and our conservation authority in Kenya, Kenya Wildlife Service, is now a broker. It's a clerk. It hands over control. It hands over control. It just signs the papers that gives control of our natural heritage to conservation organizations that are fronts for billionaires. That's all they do these days. It's a huge shame, but that's where things have been going. We actually had the Nature Conservancy and other proxies of billionaires finance the development of new wildlife legislation in Kenya. And one of the things was the creation of wildlife regulatory authority, and it's there written expressly that this regulatory authority basically will have all the power, and it is allowed to take gifts and grants. How does a regulator take gifts and grants? A regulator of anything. This is how imperialism is working now. And it is not really something new, because we need to understand that imperial colonialism, like what happened in Africa, Asia, and other places, was it was a commercial, it was a capitalist initiative. The the European empires, other empires, did not go to these other lands because they were fascinated with these black African people or these brown Asian people. No, they had run out of resources, and they were going there to look for resources in terms of, be it spices, be it wood, be it ivory, be it minerals, gold, gems, jewelry, even human beings, human resource. It was exported out of this. So imperialism has always been a commercial enterprise. So this is not new. And what's important at this time is for us to realize that imperial oligarchs, are not our friends. And these are the people who control the media, and they've created narratives that say that use the use they've turned certain words into slurs. Like socialist is a slur now. To be called a socialist is to be insulted or vilified. I saw there's a candidate for mayor in New York in the United States, some guy called Zoran Mamdani. The The one slur people are using to attack him is he's socialist. I don't even know that he's actually socialist, but it's used as a slur because anyone who stands up against the oligarchs is branded a socialist or even a communist. And those who use these slurs against you are your fellow poor people. They're the ones, the vast masses that are convinced that oligarchs are good people. When a billionaire funds a vaccine campaign, no, he's not a good person. He's not doing it out of any love for humanity. If he had love for humanity, he would pay his workers well, or he would in the case of like Bill Gates. He's offered us everything in Africa. He offers us seeds, vaccines, chickens, everything. But Africa is still one place where you pay very heavily for Microsoft Office. He's never offered us Microsoft Office for free. Yet it's available for free in the US and many other Western countries. But that's it. It's never out of altruism that any of these initiatives are taken. So the worst thing is that we have normalized it to seem that privatization of any public good, public space, social space, social space or public political space is a good thing. We have seen the fencing of Uhuru Park in Nairobi, and so many different facilities. We even have a term we use for this nonsense. We call it PPP, as in public private partnerships. That's our term for giving oligarchs our public spaces, and people are praised for it. We even have a government secretariat tasked with mortgaging all our public goods to, or selling all our public goods, public spaces, publicly owned parts of our lives to private hands. We call it PPP. And sometimes there's other terms used like concession agreements, franchise agreements. Um, Another one is called, in fact, the shadowy financial instruments used to do this. In Kenya, we call them special purpose vehicles, SPVs. These are just looting mechanisms. But the thing is, as much as government is problematic, a friend of mine had a very elegant term that says government is a necessary evil in the world today. Yes, it can be evil, and it is often evil wherever you are in the world, but it is necessary. It is necessary. Right now, the worst thing is that power is draining out from government or state organs, not to the people, not sort of percolating downwards to the people, but it's drifting sideways and in some cases upwards into the hands of capitalist oligarchs. These are cruel, unscrupulous people who are not bound by laws, constitutions, are not bound by accounting mechanisms for money. They are not bound by any morality. They're just bound by profit. The government that has the strictures, governments, we have constitutions, laws, regulations, procedures that must be followed. And all this keeps the evil that exists in people, because government consists of people. All these regulations keep that evil in check. But a billionaire doesn't have those regulations. He doesn't have to ask anyone. He's got 500, 500 million. He can hand over 500 million right now to whatever cause he wants to give that money. No one will ask him why he's doing it. And they're the same people that our governments have been convinced to give tax breaks. So on the average, they are taxed less than you and me. And they use those gains to subvert the same government that gives them the tax breaks. This is the problem. This is how imperialism is currently working. This is why billionaire capitalists are currently taking over water resources, forests in Kenya, national parks. They're taking over roads. They're taking over airports. They're taking over prisons. They're taking over all these. They're taking over healthcare, education, etc. Um, the World Economic Forum is a conference of oligarchs where presidents and heads of state go to pay homage to oligarchs. That's the saddest thing about it. The oligarchs come together in Davos, presidents go to pay homage to them, conservationists go to pay homage to them, young people go to pay homage to them, charity or NGOs, etc., go to pay homage to them. So it's a place where they go and sit on their high thrones, and everybody, all the who's who from around the world, comes to wash their feet. And we must do away with that. There is no good part of that. And that's what we need to understand now. Let's stop, not completely stop, but let's turn our gaze from focusing on nations, and let's turn our gaze, our questions, and our skepticism. Skepticism is very important. We must turn our skepticism towards these billionaire oligarchs wherever we are in the world, because we have them in Kenya, we have them in India, you have them in Europe, you have the United States, etc., etc., etc. And wherever they are, they have to be held in check. And some countries have done that. I've seen occasions where there's very strict lines, for example, in Russia, that oligarchs can't cross. You can earn your billions from whatever it is you're doing, but you cross that political line, there's some red line somewhere. You cross it and they just hammer you. It's happened in China as well. You see and in Russia you see, like with Khodorkovsky, and others. In China you've seen it with the sort of disappearance of Jack Ma, um, apparently into thin air after he had grown huge with Alibaba and all that. But that might seem draconian, but I think it's addressing a problem that the rest of us must do solve individually. Let's stop this blind belief in the goodness of billionaires. Let's hold them to account. Let's justice, principle, etc., not quantitative things that are attached to how much money you have or how little you have. Um, there are things that a lie is a lie, whether it's backed by billions of dollars or 0 shillings. It's just a lie. And the truth will eventually come out. But we can head off these things as individual citizens. Let's stop supporting injustice because it's done by someone who's fabulously wealthy and can build a wonderful office in Nairobi. That's how carbon trading works. It's bullshit. It's nothing, but it's backed by billionaires. So we now have people doing running offices based on carbon trading. We have government departments of carbon trading. We have universities offering courses on carbon trading. Yet this is bullshit. But all these people are doing it because it's backed by billionaires. So let's get our skeptic caps on and retain the public spaces. We have instruments by which we can hold government to check, but there are very few instruments that can hold billionaires to check. They're not even restricted to international borders. They travel the way they don't even need to get visas. They just travel. So all the structures are in that exist in the world right now just hold in check small people. Let's strengthen those structures so that they hold the big fish in check as well. It's for the good of all of us. And when someone calls you a socialist, say thank you and take it as a compliment.